You can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed, was attacked. You can't deny the fact that churches have been targeted in the West Bank as well.
Tucker Carlson sat down with Anna Kasparian to discuss Christianity, Israel, and the attack of a Catholic church in Gaza.
We're the baddies, okay? Yeah. Maybe we should be more concerned about profits for, bomb makers and weapons manufacturers and private contractors and the mercenaries that are currently working over in Gaza to shoot and kill people as they're waiting for humanitarian aid. The kinds of things I've been hearing people say publicly, I would not have heard. But I think what's happening this time around is you really can't deny what you're seeing on the ground in Gaza. You can't deny what's happening in the West Bank, not just in regard to Palestinians, Palestinian Muslims, but also Palestinian Christians. You can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed, was attacked. You can't deny the fact that churches have been targeted in the West Bank as well. People can lie to us as much as they want, but the videos are out there.
How do you blow up a church if you've got munitions, laser-guided munitions that are so sophisticated that they can take out, a guy in an SUV from 30,000 feet? How do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top of it?
It was just an accident, Tucker. It was an accident.
It's not the first church.
No, it's not. And it wasn't an accident. It wasn't an accident.
But the situation in Gaza is heartbreaking. It seems like just every nation in the world is calling for this to end. I've personally chosen to not look at images or videos of what is happening. I read the articles and listen to some of the reporting. Now, the reason I chose to do this is because I think a lot of times we're becoming desensitized as we continue to consume these kinds of things. The Free Press recently published an article on this topic that I think is probably one of the best ones that I've read. Now, the reporter in the article is trying to present things fairly without a bias, which is more than can be said about some of the mainstream news sources. And I think this is part of the problem. Mainstream news is more focused on spinning the narrative to create more outrage than just presenting the facts. They're trying to persuade you to be on their side. They're trying to persuade you to be on their team instead of just presenting the information for what it is. They're more interested in getting people to watch than just telling the truth. I think kind of makes some big claims. And to be honest, I don't know if there's a way for us to verify what she is saying. I know that there have been some clips going around, and under other circumstances, that might be enough. The problem here is that some of the clips that are circulating have been later shown to be from years ago or from completely different parts of the world. So not covering the situation in Gaza, but perhaps from another conflict. This intentional misinformation doesn't help. This has also been the case with some of the numbers being reported by the Gaza Health Ministry. Those numbers have been shown to be fabricated. They're exaggerating the numbers. Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that innocent people aren't dying, but it does mean that we're not being told all of the facts or being given all of the data. They're spinning the narrative to try to support their side. And this is happening on both sides, right? I'm not saying that Israel in some cases isn't doing the same thing. I'm just saying that that's what makes it so difficult to figure out what's what. The prevailing belief is that the organization reporting or providing these numbers are being run by Hamas or their sympathizers. They have an agenda too. Now, I do agree that if you have actual boots on the ground, you probably have the best idea of what is going on, which is why I think when we listen to President Trump say how he was there and he says there's real starvation happening, we should take that seriously. I think a lot of people, they try to dismiss that, but when you have people that are physically there saying these things, we should be at least a little more reasonable or a little more willing to hear what they are saying. I think Tucker raises a great question. Why is it that the IDF has the ability to be so precise with their weapons, right, when they're targeting a specific enemy, but yet completely miss it in other situations? I understand that these kinds of things do happen, but it does seem like it's happening a little more often. And when you consider, again, the precision that they've shown when they've targeted specific areas or specific individuals, it just begs the question. And it doesn't help their case. On the other side of that, I think sometimes people quickly forget that Israel is perhaps the only nation that sends warning to the people of the other country that they are going to attack. They did this with Gaza and with Lebanon. So I don't think we should just dismiss that either. They proactively try to let the people know, hey, this is going to happen. It's going to happen at this time or around this time. You should probably leave. We shouldn't just overlook that. One thing that I think we can all agree on is that this whole thing has been going on for too long. Things aren't getting better. They are getting worse. I don't know what the solution is, but I think at this point, we can say that what you are doing is not working like you thought it would. It's time to pivot.
Electorate in this country have no ability to change it because it doesn't matter which party you vote for, whether it's a Democratic presidential candidate or a Republican presidential candidate, they're going to get elected and they're going to get dog walked by whoever the prime minister of Israel is at the time.
How do we wind up supporting an Al-Qaeda leader? I thought we were anti-Al-Qaeda.
I thought so too. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But I mean, this is seen throughout American history in regard to our foreign policy. I mean, we will fund the Taliban, we'll give them weapons to fight, the communists. We want to avoid communism. And then we turn on them, for obvious reasons after what happened on 9/11. But I mean, I think it's not.
Well, we were told 9/11 was done by Al-Qaeda. So we've got to be pretty, I mean, that wasn't that long ago. We've got to be pretty anti-Al-Qaeda.
This is a good take. I would have to agree with Anna here. Not sure about the Israel part, but as far as it doesn't matter which party you vote for, because they're essentially going to do whatever they want, I think she's right about that. This has been the case for a while now. And recently, it does seem like it's getting worse. This is why I think that continuing with the two-party system where there isn't a viable third-party option isn't beneficial for the people. There is a sense in which the U.S. has created the very enemies the country is now fighting against. There's a history, a pattern of this. We saw this happen with Latin and Central America. The U.S. was so concerned about Russian or Chinese influence that they provided weapons to the people and essentially sent them out as proxies of war.
Actually, at the time, but it happened 4 years ago.
But why aren't the preachers talking about it? So churches were blown up?
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, religious leaders have been, but American media doesn't care about it. I mean, America doesn't care about Armenia at all.
Oh, I get it. It's a small country, but the Armenians were persecuted precisely because they were Christians. That's my read. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, they were the minority, the religious minority.
Of course, the religious minority at the very end of the Ottoman Empire, end of the First World War, and they were murdered in enormous numbers by the Ottomans, using the Kurds, I think, for a lot of it. And the Kurds, we love the Kurds. But I don't understand why. I just see this theme. You may disagree with this, but I see a global theme where the most peaceful religion in the world is taking the most abuse and there's the most murder of Christians. I don't quite know what that is. And I just am amazed that nobody says anything in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, Armenians don't have a powerful lobby that can bribe our politicians to care about them.
This is a great question by Tucker. It does seem like this situation doesn't get the coverage that it should. Now, I became more aware of the situation in Armenia because of YouTube and because of Ruslan, who is also Armenian. I appreciate Anna's response. Religious leaders are talking about it. They're just being ignored because it doesn't advance the narrative that they're looking to promote. America as a country has become very me-centered. And listen, I live here, so I get it. But I think this is why other countries feel some type of way about the U.S. Now, it's somewhat of a double-edged sword because you have some people that will cry out how America is only looking to benefit themselves, but then they'll also talk about how America keeps trying to get involved in things it shouldn't be involved in. Now, I tend to lean more towards the second one. I think sometimes the U.S. is too eager to jump into situations where they probably shouldn't be involved in, and it's actually making matters worse. And it really depends on how you look at it. Sometimes I think that they do so because they are, in a sense, trying to benefit themselves. I mean, some of the stuff that's come out about the war in Afghanistan hasn't been very good. They're there have been some wild accusations about why they were so adamant about going there and trying to access a particular mineral that's there in that region. Mainstream news is not going to like Tucker Carlson pointing out how the religious minority was being persecuted for being Christians. I mean, how long did it take for mainstream media to cover the atrocities happening to Christians in countries in Africa? It was ignored for months, and it only started getting addressed after you saw the people on YouTube pointing it out. It's almost like they felt pressured because YouTubers were covering it and they weren't. It's unfortunate that that's what it's come down to. Now he doubles down because then he says perhaps the world's most peaceful religion is being persecuted on what seems to be a global scale. He says, why is that? Well, Tucker, I would say that is probably because it is a spiritual battle. There's a sense of spiritual warfare that is happening. Paul talks about how we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We war against principalities and powers and dominions. Those principalities and powers and dominions are representing a different kingdom, a kingdom that is opposed to the kingdom of heaven, that is opposed to God's kingdom. So because they are in opposition, they are attacking the ones that represent Jesus Christ, the ones who are his people. The lack of coverage from mainstream media in these kinds of situations doesn't help their case. And to be honest, I can see a scenario where most news coverage is happening on platforms like the one that Anna is a part of, the Young Turks, because they're covering the stuff that mainstream media is shying away from because it doesn't please their audience, right? And this is part of the problem. It's all about trying to appease your followers. That's not what news should be about. And I know there's been a progression. A few months ago, I was reading a book and it talked about how originally the news was focused on more or less just providing what people wanted to hear. And it's more so recent that it's been this push for it to be unbiased in that sense.
Like all sorts of financial crimes were taking place.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's really, and the fact that Iran has a huge Christian population, I just think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not explained.
No one ever talks about that because it goes against the grain. It goes against the narrative of Iran. And again, that's not to say that the Iranian regime is fantastic and I support it. I don't. And by the way, it's not my place to determine who governs or who rules Iran. It's up to the Iranian people to make that decision.
You don't think it's up to you?
Hell no. I live in America. I'm an American. Who am I to tell any country who their leader should be? Who is our government? Like, we should not be meddling in those matters in any sovereign country. It's up to the people of that country to either rise up and demand something different or to reform the system, whatever they want to do. I'm not interested in regime change. It's not my place.
Earlier in the video, Anna points out how when Azerbaijan attacked Armenia, a lot of their weapons were supplied by Israel. And then they jumped topics into Iran and the large Christian population. Now, based on what she said earlier in the conversation, it does sound like she is saying that the Israeli army may be targeting Christians. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it did kind of come across that way. I do agree with her other take about it going against the narrative. Christianity is growing exponentially in Iran, and that doesn't get brought up when talking about going to war. It's conveniently ignored, conveniently dismissed. There is a large growing Christian population in that country. The focus is on painting them as the enemy and not humanizing the people. One of the concerns for me, whenever this topic comes up, is people going to the other extreme and embracing anti-Semitic ideas. As a Christian, I think it's important to remember that we are called to be the light of the world, not embrace extremes. I also think it's worth pointing out that when we look in scripture, particularly the passage there at the end of Ezekiel, I think it's Ezekiel 38-39, we have this picture of an alliance of nations all coming against Israel. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, and I know some people are going to say, hey, that's just dispensationalism. But that facet of scripture is prophetic. And to my knowledge, that hasn't been fulfilled yet. So when we see these things start to happen and we see, in a sense, nations coming together and all looking at Israel in a negative light, I think it's important for us to be aware of that as well. Again, I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, but I do think it's something that we should keep in mind. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.